Did you guys know that Sabrina Carpenter has 5 albums? 5. Eyes Wide Open, Evolution, Singular Act 1, Singular Act 2, and Emails I Can't Send. And a Christmas EP. And she's only 25. Like, that's enough time for at least 10 more albums before her hips start giving out on her. For me, Sabrina was always someone that I knew, because I grew up a Disney Channel kid, so I'm not proud of it, but there was a point in my life where Girl Meets World was my shit.
Except I got both your wrists and I'm as strong as a horse. I don't even work at it, I just down.
A lot of people probably think that she's an industry plant, which really couldn't be further from the truth. I've come across plenty of people that thought Emails was her debut album when it was really her 5th. But I'm not really one to talk, as much as I consider myself a member of Sab's Fab fan club. I've only ever listened to Emails, and I was even late to that bandwagon. Oh, and I listened to the Christmas EP, of course. So, in anticipation for her upcoming 6th studio album, which I am so hyped for, I decided to study up, go back and listen to all of her projects. As a pregame, but also because I was genuinely curious about the progression of her music career, and how she went from nobody knowing who she is to seemingly everyone in what feels like a couple of weeks. So yeah, here's a review of her entire discography. I want to start off by prefacing one thing. These first 4 albums, the ones that no one really cares about, were all released under Hollywood Records, which is the Disney record label. And not that this is a proven theory, but I do kind of feel like that puts a cap on the amount of success these projects can see. Demi Lovato, the Jonas Brothers, Selena Gomez, Miley Cyrus, all were signed to this record label at one point, but it wasn't until they left that they started to become respected as actual artists, which obviously kind of ties back to the stigma surrounding Disney artists. Child stars, whether it be acting or making music, always need some sort of rite of passage to prove themselves as actual talents when they're older. But anyways, Eyes Wide Open by Sabrina Carpenter was released April 14th, 2015. And listen, for what it is, it's not that bad. I actually think as far as debut Disney projects go, it's pretty good. Not that I'm like super well versed in all the Bridget Medlers and whoever other Disney stars there are. The clouds are clogging up my brain like the weather drain saying. But I think even this early in her career, Sabrina's a very talented vocalist and just a better presence than like any of the other artists I mentioned were at first. Even Miley Cyrus, who like right now can literally go toe to toe with Beyonce on a song, I would say started off a little bit rockier on her first album than Sabrina does here. Party in the USA is kind of a banger though, let's be real. I feel like even though Sabrina's much younger sounding on this project, just because, yeah, she's like 15, she still has a really great tone, and that younger sound kind of just adds to this like innocence that I enjoy because it just kind of makes the corniness more tolerable. The album embraces a country pop type sound that is very clearly trying to ride the Taylor Swift wave of cute white girl with a guitar. I guess the difference being Sabrina Carpenter didn't really write any of these songs, and yeah, that dissonance is pretty clear at times. One giveaway for me is how often she talks about being young and dumb on this project. I just don't think actual 15-year-olds are that self-aware. I could totally see the writers on this project just being like 30-year-old plus, just getting annoyed with working with a teen and taking it all out in the songwriting. Because I'm young and I'm dumb, and I should probably let the adults talk for once while I just stay in my corner and shut the fuck up. I will say that acoustic guitar sound gets really old really quickly, just because that sound is so outplayed. I'm pretty sure it was even outplayed at this time. I'm not going to pretend that none of these songs do that sound well, but most of them just have really mid and kind of bad hooks. It's really just nothing that stands out to me at all. 2 hidden gems here. 1, Can't Blame a Girl for Trying. If Taylor Swift and Jason Mraz had a baby, it would be Sabrina Carpenter on this song. And I think it works really well. Her vocals on this song sell it for me. Lyrically, it's cute, it's fun, it's pretty tight. No real complaints on this. And considering it was her debut single, I understand why they would pick this song. It's very well put together in my opinion. And I think it highlights and encapsulates the best parts of this album, which are her and like the innocence. And then there's another song called Your Love's Like, which is like just an unironic banger. The chorus gives me like Carrie Underwood vibes, where she's just like belting shit out. Oh my god. Your love's like breathing in the sun, on a private island just for me. But overall, I would say this project was not nearly as redundant as I was expecting it to be. Considering she's probably one of the last Disney stars to debut through Hollywood Records. It's just not a surprise to me that this debut project is so much stronger than all the other ones that come to mind. Disney knows what they're doing at this point. It's too bad that it's kind of too little too late. Had Sabrina Carpenter been born 5 years earlier and this project come out 5 years earlier, I could see her being super successful early on. But obviously that isn't the case. I would probably give this project a 5.5. The funny thing about this album is I was listening to it at the gym and like I low-key got a really good workout in. I don't know what it is about girly music that just gives me that extra push. I guess I just channel like my inner slay queen boss bitch. Album 2 is titled Evolution. Yeah, Evolution. I don't really know. It's like capitalized EVO, and then the rest is lowercase, but it's Evolution. But like, why is that capitalized? And it's probably Evolution, right? But then Evolution sounds kind of dumb. I'm just gonna say Evolution. It's not Evo that's capitalized. It's Evol, which is love backwards. Duh. I do still think that's kind of corny, though. Like, it just feels like self-parody. It's an album title that a label would give a girl pop star in a movie before she says, "No, Dad, I want to make music that I like." Then starts busting a move on all the execs. And this album is EDM pop. That's pretty much it. End of review. Kidding, obviously. I would never do that. We're taking all these projects seriously, no matter how difficult it is to do so. Released October 14th, 2016, only a year and a half after her debut project, which I could kind of take in two different ways. It's possible that she was trying to pump out as many albums as possible to get out of her contract. She signed like a 4 or 5 album deal with Hollywood Records when she was 14, and you could kind of see how she might see it as shackles moving into her like early 20s. Although at this point she's like still 16 or something, but you get my point. So yeah, it could be she was trying to get out of her contract as fast as possible. It could also just be that she was grinding. Who knows? We've seen Drake make albums with much faster turnaround times. If you guys are familiar with my channel, you know that I'm not a huge fan of EDM pop. That whole era of like 2014 to 2016 Zed beat drops and Chainsmoker, blech, I actually like just hate it so much. But I went into this album treating that as just my own personal bias and trying my best to see like what this project really had to offer, because I could take the negative route and I could call it every little thing that I think these projects do pretty bad. For example, the mixing on the first project that we talked about, not that great at times. You know, her vocals sometimes sounded super compressed. You're nerfing her. That actually bothered me a little bit. I should have brought that up because that kind of pissed me off at times. But that's something that I kind of expect from that Disney sound. You know, a lot of times they're just overproduced, which is whatever. But going into this project with an open mind, I actually thought that the EDM aspects of it weren't nearly as obnoxious as you might think. They didn't overdo it, in my opinion. You know, it does get old, but obviously anything gets old if you just keep hammering it in over and over again. And while I would say that I liked Eyes Wide Open more than this one, there are some aspects of this album that I think showed pretty big improvements. Vocally, she doesn't get as much time to shine here because, again, there's so much reliance on that EDM sound. As much as I was praising her vocals on the first project, you know, she did still sound like a kid singing. And here she's not fully grown, but you can definitely sense more maturity in her tone. She also just does a lot more things to try and like spice it up, whether it's taking on new styles or just tapping into different sounds for her vocals that are kind of reminiscent of like other pop stars that were famous at the time, like Alicia Cara. Is that how you say her name? Alicia? I don't know, but you know who I'm talking about. Even like a Halsey a little bit, you know, with like the singing in cursive. And while sometimes it does get a little bit cringe, you know, I'm just gonna say it, I respect the effort, Sabrina. Part of me wants to say that this album feels a lot less personal than the first one, but, you know, it's not like she wrote any of the songs on the first one, so is it really? There were 2 standout songs for me. I don't know if I would go as far as to call them hidden gems, but maybe on like hidden gem watch, you know, I kind of have to sit with them a little bit longer. Thumbs, I think, is probably her best verse across these first 2 projects, maybe even all of the first 4 projects. It's just a really interesting concept, and I think it's decently well executed. The other song is No Words, which, honestly, I kind of hate it, but I kind of love it. On one hand, the verse really reminds me of Obsessed by Addison Rae, and you know, I fucking hate that song so much. I hate everything it stands for. I just think it's so bad, but the chorus is kind of good. I don't know, it's like catchy, sue me. Overall, I'd say the album showcases a good amount of variety in sounds, but somehow doesn't feel as cut and sewn as the first album. Since she clearly had a lot more writing credits here, I would honestly consider this to be her first outing as like an actual artist. Even though she is still technically under the Disney Channel label, it just feels different. You know, you look at the album cover and you can tell they're kind of trying to rebrand her career, have her start being taken a little more seriously. You know, it's just darker colors, her facial expressions like super serious. That with some of the song titles on this thing are like just super emo, Mirage, Shadows. And honestly, I could kind of take it seriously. The hooks aren't great, but that kind of just comes with the style, right? You know, like this type of music, a lot of it is just letting the production carry most of it. You'll have like a little tagline of like a few words at the beginning, and then it's just like, that's something that I'll get into a little bit later, but I think a large part of what elevates her music that she's been pumping out more recently is that she does lean more on the lyrical content and like actual concepts of the song to construct the hooks. But yeah, I don't know, I just fucking hate EDM, so I'm probably gonna give this like a 5. All right, here we go. Album 3. Singular Act 1 was released November 9th, 2018. This project is super short. It's only 25 minutes, so it's barely an album. But I feel like it's very representative of the pop scene at the time. You know, if there's one thing we can tell so far, is that Sabrina Carpenter is not shy to capitalize off of trends to try and see her own success. I feel like I should note that most pop stars do this when they're starting out, especially if they're starting really young. I do feel like she went on doing that a little bit longer than most other artists would, but I'd probably guess that just has to do with Hollywood Records being in control of of everything she does. Essentially all Disney songs are super generic, at least like the Disney Channel Stars ones, I mean. 2018 was a really weird transitional year for pop music, where I feel like they wouldn't fully let go of like that EDM sound. It hadn't really settled in that nostalgia core trend yet that became super prominent in the 2020s. And as a reflection of that, this album is kind of a fucking mess. Which is kind of crazy because there's only 8 tracks, so you really have to be all over the place if 8 songs are gonna be messy. Some songs are a little bit more reminiscent of Evo, and then some kind of feel more bare bones. But in general, you'll go from an EDM song to an R&B song to a Rihanna type joint. And I guess I just struggle to see this project as like a singular body, which is kind of ironic considering the album title. That said, I obviously understand where the title is trying to come from. I feel like the intent behind this project is to showcase her versatility on a higher level, saying like, oh, she's a one-woman show, she can do it all on her own. But I feel like that ambition kind of ends up stretching her a little too thin. And yeah, I did not like it that much. You know, I would honestly prefer 7 duds and 1 like really decent or really good song over 8 songs that kind of feel like they're phoning it in, you know, not really committing to their concepts. However, the effort is definitely there. Again, I do respect how much she tries to change up her tone and keep things really fresh. Like, considering how rare that is in pop music today, you really have to respect it. And that's honestly another reason why I'm so excited for Short and Sweet, because I feel like looking at the 2 singles they've released already, she's showcasing such different cadences and like deliveries with her vocals while still staying in line with one cohesive sound in regards to like production and vibe, and I find that to be very cool, very exciting. Anyways, back to Singular Act. It's Middington, give me a 4, but I'll let it slide because again, it is very clearly a transitional period for her career, and like I always say on this channel, I'm gonna respect when an artist tries new things, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna fucking like it. On a side note, I'm pretty happy that Perfect is the only R&B song we've gotten from Sabrina Carpenter thus far. I saw a TikTok on my For You page the other day that was like, oh, we need R&B Brina, whatever, R&B Brina, ASAP, please release more R&B music. I'm like, no. Not every pop star needs to go R&B, bro. That's not even me trying to gatekeep. It's just like, I'm really happy with the pop R&B we have now. I don't want it to become oversaturated. Sabrina sounds great with what she's doing now. She should just keep doing that. Not everyone needs to do R&B, okay? And yeah, no hidden gems on this one, unfortunately. Okay, Singular Act 2, released July 19th, 2019. I don't really know what to say. This project has the same issues as Singular Act 1. Obviously, it's a double album, so that's not really a surprise. But somehow, they feel more blaring here. And that could just be because at this point, I was like really tired of it. I didn't mention this before, but I listened to Evo and both Singular Acts all in the same workout just because they're pretty short projects. I was able to crank them all out, and at this point I was probably very fatigued with this EDM, you know, very basic pop music sound from her. There's definitely more songs that commit to like more unique concepts and like ideas, but it's a little bit overwhelming because I just feel like they overdo it at times, and Sabrina's presence on these songs just gets lost in all of that, which is kind of a bummer because her singing, her cadences, that's been the one constant across all these projects, and it's been my favorite part about all of them. But this project, more so than even Evo and Singular Act 1, just really puts that on the back burner, and that's kind of a disappointment. One good thing I will say about this project, which kind of also turned into a bad thing, is it's probably the least derivative, but that in turn kind of makes it feel like it's less certain of like what it's doing. The production is just so outrageous at times that it feels like Sabrina doesn't know what she's like in uncharted territory, and she's just not sure like what to do with that. I'm gonna give it a 3. Alright, I know I really haven't had much to say about those individual albums, but we've arrived to emails I can't send. So obviously I'm gonna have a lot of thoughts on this one. It's her most successful album. It's, in my opinion, far and away her best. And there's just the most to unpack here. Not including Short and Sweet, because at the time of filming this, that album has not come out yet. And it definitely played a large role in her surge of popularity in the past 2 years. I know I already have a review of Emails I Can't Send, but treat it like a little bit of a redux. You know, I feel like I've gotten a lot better at articulating my thoughts on music since then. I haven't watched that video in so long just because I know I'll cringe at it instantly. It was like one of my first album reviews ever. Please don't go watch it. Please, I'm begging you. Emails I Can't Send was released July 15th, 2022, and it is also her first non-Disney album release, which should tell you everything you need to know about it, to be honest. I love High School Musical so much. I grew up on that shit. Troy, that's my guy, okay? But let's not act like there aren't levels to good pop music. You have bad, good, bad, good, good, and bangers. Eyes Wide Open was good, bad. The 3 albums after that were bad, good. And we're now starting to get into the good to bangers territory, which is really nice. Obviously, we know that Emails I Can't Send was her big break as far as albums go so far. It wasn't like super successful, like it didn't really chart that high on the Billboard 200, I don't think, but I think it started to establish like a concrete fan base for her. So I definitely was curious to see the changes that happened in between Singular Act 2 and this project, like other than the label switch, because to take such a big jump, there has to be some other contributing factors, right? After doing some light research, it doesn't really seem like she tightened up her production team, you know. This album is still pretty much varying in producers and writers from song song to song. But I think it's also important to look at the state of the pop music scene at the time, because as we've already addressed, her sound has been so influenced by trends up till this point. There's no reason why we should really expect that to change, right? And you know, whether anyone likes to admit it or not, I do truly think that Olivia Rodrigo's Sour had a big effect on the pop music industry at the time. Olivia was, I think, the first time that you saw the whole singer-songwriter shtick go like that viral and become as widespread as it was. Like, yeah, obviously Taylor Swift had her hits before, but part of my reason in crediting her is because I feel like it was elevated to such another level with social media. And at Taylor Swift's peak pettiness in her career, social media was just not nearly as prominent. Fans were so deeply invested in overanalyzing these songs and lyrics and conversing with each other through social media and like TikTok and stuff. Sour comes out in March, has the driver's license drama. That fall is when All Too Well 10 Minute drops and everyone's hating on Jake Gyllenhaal, and it just carries on and on. So in this new singer-songwriter pop music climate, Sabrina does what she's been doing her entire career thus far, which is adapt. And while there are some songs that are very clearly just, you know, standard pop records, Intro Track, Because I Like the Boy, Tornado Warnings, to me these are songs that are very reminiscent of that singer-songwriter shtick. And I think when you include songs like that on a project that has other stuff, it does affect how you look at the entire thing, especially considering how intimate that intro track really is. It's super clear that this is a very personal album to her. You know, the concept of having emails you can't send is like your internal struggles that you have with the relationships in your life, struggles that you aren't really able to articulate to them for whatever reason, so you pour it out in your songs. That's, to me, what this album stands for. And yet, even if she didn't write 100% of all these songs on her own, I don't think that takes away from establishing the deeper connection she has with this album, which in turn establishes a deeper connection with the fans. This is what we call Swiftie syndrome. The closer an artist is to their music, the closer the fans feel to the artist. And it just becomes so much easier to feel invested in their career because their music is now suddenly so much more relatable. You know, Sabrina Carpenter has become someone that they feel like they now have a greater grasp on emotionally. And just like her character, you know, she's not just a pop spectacle anymore. But the truth is, I don't think that's an end-all be-all to making good pop music. There isn't a direct correlation to how personal you are with your music and how good it's gonna be. I just think that ended up playing a bigger part in her building a fan base and building an audience. I will say this isn't really fully a concept album because, again, there are a lot of songs that pull out as like just one-off pop bangers. Vicious, Read Your Mind nonsense, stuff like that. But that's all kind of bigger picture stuff, you know, in regards to just the music. What makes this project so much better quality-wise? First, I think there's pretty clearly a lot less pressure to cater to trends to a T, but rather treat those trends as just like a subtle influence and create songs that have more longevity. In the other four albums, it always felt like they were trying to sell me on Sabrina Carpenter, you know? Being like, look, she could do all the things that your favorite artists can do. When in actuality, I don't care that she could do everything that everyone else does. I want to see the things that she could do that nobody else does. That was kind of a bar. I'm really proud of that. I literally just thought of that off the dome. I also think how personal this album is to her isn't reflected just in like how deep the lyrics go. She's clearly someone that can be a deeper thinker and has her own baggage, but is also kind of fun and chill and lighthearted. You get songs like Nonsense with all those ad libs, and it's just very clearly not meant to be taken seriously, which I think just makes it easier to enjoy the corny, girly pop music aspects of this album, because it's like she knows that it's corny, but she's embracing it, so we're all collectively kind of in on the joke together. I do think the lyrical style of this album is kind of inconsistent. You just go from having some like pretty clunky lyrics to really tight ones, and then some really goofy ones. It's kind of all over the place. And in general, you know, I just feel like this album shows so much potential. It's her fifth studio album, so that feels kind of dumb to say, but it does feel like there's more to her than she's letting on, and I'm excited to see how she expands upon that in her next project, especially seeing how deep some of these songs cut. I would love to see her have just like a couple songs on Short and Sweet that really dig into shit, but I also wouldn't mind if they're just all pop summary bangers, to be honest. I forgot to give a final rating for this album. I'm feeling a solid 7.5. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little low for most of you watching this, but I don't know, like, while I think it is really good and just light years ahead of all her other stuff, there aren't necessarily any bad songs, but a lot of them, in my opinion, are pretty forgettable. And then, of course, you do have some that are really great. It's just not really cracking into that upper echelon of like great pop albums. To sum up, what I think she managed to prove with this album is essentially everything I think she wanted to prove with Evolution. She's shown that she should be taken seriously as an artist and that she actually has stuff to say. And even if some of the songs have recycled sentiments, you know, I think it takes on new meaning because she's the one saying, and it sets a new status quo for her career. But I guess that leads us to where we are now. Sabrina dropped an extended edition of Emails I Can't Send that featured the song Feather, which ended up becoming her biggest hit yet. Then she dropped 2 more singles a couple months after that, and they went 1 and 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, and now she's basically a household name. It honestly feels like she has the Midas touch at this point. Like, I really do not see a version of Reality where Short and Sweet is mid. Imagine it is, though, and I just said that in the video, and then it cuts to like my review being like, Oh my god, that album was ass. Bro, that would suck. That'd be so funny, though. Jokes aside, though, I really do anticipate this project being her best one yet. Jack Antonoff being one of the lead producers on this album is just a recipe for greatness. Because I feel like he's kind of dug himself too deep into a hole with his relationships with Lana and Taylor Swift, where there's just too much of an expectation for what he's gonna do with them that he can't really try new things or challenge himself. And that's definitely pretty prominent on Tortured Poets department. You know, a lot of his work there was kind of redundant. But Sabrina Carpenter's fresh blood, you know, she's clearly gonna be super ambitious with this project because she's been grinding for the past 10 years and she finally made it. It's like all those efforts with all those other projects have led to this point, and I can't help but be super happy for her because, you know, when you know that someone's been grinding something for a really long time, it's just so much easier to root for them. I think that tendency is kind of why a lot of people hate on TikTokers, because they saw fame overnight and didn't really work for it that hard. But that's just my take. I don't know. Just wrapped up what I would consider a very successful short and sweet live reaction. That complete VOD will be available on my Patreon, but in the meantime, here it is condensed down to 30 seconds for your viewing pleasure.
Whoa, huh. Tears when I just did my makeup so nice. You're moving on with Duncan Robinson for the Miami Heat. Oh, the group is just so good. Cause I'm a singer. Like that warm electric guitar. Don't have to tell you how that's a thing. Wait.
Maybe I should set up my phone a little bit nicer. I still don't have my mic on me though, so make room for the album right there. I really liked Short and Sweet. I wouldn't say that it was like a huge jump up from Emails I Can't Send. You know, they are very different albums. Emails is much more personal and the lyrics are more sentimental to her, whereas Short and Sweet just feels like individual pop bangers, which is what I was expecting. Now, I obviously went in having really high expectations, as you saw. I don't think the album exceeded those expectations, but I definitely wasn't disappointed. You know, there are really some great songs here. A lot of the songs were like country pop, which is kind of interesting because I really expected it to go more in like the synth route, especially based off the singles, but there was a surprising amount of practical arrangements and acoustic guitars on this album. I wasn't expecting it, but I liked it. Aside from that, there's not really much I have to say. I'm gonna dig a lot deeper into it in my actual short and sweet video. I am gonna gatekeep my album rating for that video, but just to include it in this one, you know, I had to address it a little bit. And yeah, I think moving forward, it was definitely a step in the right direction because Sabrina Carpenter is like one of the only artists right now that's just making like pure pop music, not pop rock or singer-songwriter pop or pop R&B. And I love it because, you know, for a while she was kind of up in the air as far as like what direction she was gonna go in with her music. And I feel like she kind of settled into space where like she's genuinely filling a gap that is present in the pop music scene. And yeah, I guess that's it. This feels really weird. I'm like talking with two hands. Usually I have the mic in like one hand, but two hands feels a little weird. But I guess I did it successfully, kind of. Yay. So that is Sabrina and Lynn Carpenter's complete discography. Except her Christmas EP. I forgot to listen to that for this video. Damn. The question does still kind of remain how she managed to make that jump from no one listening to her to everybody in what felt like just one song. But I think the answer to that is just little by little. Most fans of girly pop stars and pop music in general grew up on Disney Channel. They just kind of go hand in hand. So even if they didn't listen to Sabrina's music, they probably at least somewhat kind of knew who she was. Obviously, if you weren't aware of her music career, she kind of just disappeared off the face of the earth for you. But the driver's license drama reminded everyone that she existed and she was still around doing stuff. Then Emails drops, which is Sab's entry into the new era of post driver's license pop. And although she's still more or less just following trends like she always has been, I think this time she just managed to catch it early enough and do it well enough to actually reap some of the benefits of that, you know, making her an actual contributor to the success of that fad rather than just another follower, and gradually increasing her popularity along the way. Then you have these little contributing factors like her opening up for the Eras tour or the nonsense outros going viral on TikTok that just really cement her presence in mainstream media a little bit more. Building up to now, in 2024, what's the new trend? Synth pop. And who's at the forefront of that movement? Sabrina and Lynn Carpenter, bitch. And I guess Chaperone. And just like that, seemingly overnight, we went from kind of sort of knowing her a little, the girl from Girl Meets World, that's who she is, right? To being firm members of Sab's Fab Fan Club. Can you tell I'm trying to make that a thing? I just feel like it's a really fire nickname for like her fan base. The truth is, this isn't the first time that something like this has happened where it took so long and so much momentum for someone to become an overnight success. Need I remind you that Thriller was Michael Jackson's 6th studio album? And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I don't know what the fuck any of these are. Off the Wall sounds kind of familiar, but I could just be thinking of Vans. I don't know. Sabrina just so happens to be one of those rarer cases where it took 10 years for her to become famous, but she's still only 25 years old, so if she plays her cards right, she could still have a really long and fruitful music career ahead of her. So yeah, I think her 10 years of building her career, kind of getting over that learning curve, gave her enough momentum that when she did have that one hit, she wasn't just a one-hit wonder, but she actually became like regarded as one of the more popular pop stars. We'll see how long that lasts, I guess, but I can only imagine she's gonna go on to have a really successful career, and I'm very excited to see what's in store for her. Anyways, I don't have a list of like top 15 songs, but I did make a playlist of my favorite ones on Spotify. I'll link that in the description. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys thought of this new style, where it's like a little bit less fancy edits, but just focusing more on the content. And I'll see you guys in the short and sweet video, which hopefully should be out sometime next week. Thou canst blame it, a person of the female gender, for putting in rebellion effort to achieve what she desires. Even if I always end up crying, can't blame a girl for trying.